He's done it all. Hundreds of skydives, traveled the world, army, police work, intelligence work, and prison. Now he's an author and a biker with an axe to grind. He's Dennis M. Young.
Few people have asked me to read or do an audio version of my book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a half dozen or 8 excerpts out of certain chapters throughout the book. So the book Henchman's Honor, it's about the making and breaking of a soldier and his redemption, which is a true story. But so I'm going to just read it like it's an audio book. So this is from this is the first one I'm doing here. It's from chapter 4, an armistice with giant turkeys. So here we go. Making it through the turbulent 60s without dying or being sent to prison was a major accomplishment. A lot of people didn't. My family had moved 9 blocks west, in part because our house was condemned and partly to move upscale. We couldn't move downscale, we sort of moved side scale. That drove a wedge between Jocelyn and I. I previously spoke about a young lady I kind of hung out with. I was 5 years old at this time. It's kind of hard to just grab excerpts out of the book because there's no backstory to it, but so I'll just throw that in as we go. My relocation made it too far for me to walk to her house, and my bike was at my grandpa's farm. Jocelyn had a bike, but her mom wouldn't let her ride it across the street. All Jocelyn could do was ride around her block over and over again. The stats on long-distance relationships weren't good anyway. I wonder what Jocelyn is doing these days. I wonder if she's ever across the street. My mom's dad was an incredible man. He was a big, bold German farmer with eyebrows like scouring pads. He was loud and large and always in charge. You knew when you were with Grandpa that whatever he said was law. He was a drinker and a scrapper right until he died at the age of about 70. He was the personification of the Gadsden flag, the flag of the American militia during the War of Independence. It has the symbol of a coiled rattlesnake and the words, "Don't tread on me." It was a fitting symbol for my grandfather. Unlike the rattlesnake, my grandfather didn't usually emit a warning. He led with one quick right and things were over before they began. The whole town of Big River, Saskatchewan knew that arguing with Grandpa was a prelude to a short, intense violence. I've seen many pictures of my grandpa at the farm, and it was always seemed that there was a party going on. I asked an uncle why the party was always on our farm. He explained that during the hard times of the Depression, many farmers around Big River were starving to death. Grandpa headed for the stockyard, removed some stock, and ran them down the road and out of town. At every farm, one beef made a detour to a very thankful family. The moral debate on theft is nothing more than sophistry when friends are dying. Grandpa later stood tall before the man for stealing chickens during that tumultuous time. He was defended by the future Prime Minister of Canada, John Diefenbaker, in Prince Albert Provincial Court. Grandpa was convicted and did a few months behind bars. Decades later, people still traveled from miles around to bring Grandpa a bottle of whiskey as a gesture of gratitude. He never asked for anything, but never turned anything down either. At the ages of 5 and 4, my younger brother and I often traveled by bus from the city to Big River to stay on the farm. The bus didn't pull into town until about 6. That's 6 p.m. Grandpa hooked up Pearl, his big Clydesdale workhorse, to the wagon and went into town for a few hours to sell eggs, chickens, and cream before meeting us. The sales invariably generated some cash that Grandpa didn't need. He had paid the price for helping people survive when they were desperate, and everyone made sure John Hebert never had to buy a shot of anything in the bar. When my brother and I arrived, Grandpa met us with strict instructions to guard the horse, his rifle, and the traded goods, while he accepted some gratitude and adjusted some attitudes in the bar. It never failed. We always had to wait until closing time before we proceeded to the farm. Sleeping on an open straw-filled wagon became a ritual that was required before going to the farm. Every farmer that left or got thrown out of the bar stopped and made sure we were comfortable. Some of them were bleeding. Grandpa was the supreme ruler of the farm that included all the birds, wolves, bears, trees, and domestic animals. They existed because Grandpa allowed them to. Being his right-hand man gave me full and unfettered access to the aforementioned domain. My official title was Deputy Commander of the World. It sounds hectic and complicated, but I did manage to have a lot of free time. Grandpa was the one person in my life who loved me for certain. Proximity is power, and there was never a gap between us. If anyone wanted to find me, they just had to look for Grandpa's knee. He was the umbrella that protected me when the shit hit the fan, and I was good at making it hit the fan. It didn't matter. My version of the Almighty was never far away. He, with some assistance from Grandma, gave me 10 aunts and uncles. He could and would circumvent any act set down by Mom and Dad. I wore my cowboy boots in the house, and the echo of my boots on the hardwood floor was a clear demonstration of my immunity from prosecution. I am the oldest grandchild. Hear me stomp. My aunts Gloria and Kathleen had taught me to ride my bike while Mom made the rules. Rule number 1 was that in the event of a flat tire, riding was suspended for the summer. That rule lasted until I got a flat tire and Grandpa fixed it. Grandpa and I won, Mom 0. Fighting evil was a big part of my duties, which wasn't easy when my adversaries were bigger than me and I insisted on operating alone. But it's not the size of the boy in the fight that matters. It's tough to obtain credibility and instill fear when you have yet to reach 4 feet tall, but it's not impossible. The turkeys on the farm were big, ugly, and intimidating. I didn't like them and made their lives as hellish as a 6-year-old could. I mocked their gobble and approached them aggressively and backed away. The turkeys pushed back with the full weight of their size and numbers. Domesticated turkeys were everywhere. I had gone out of my way to get their attention, and I had succeeded. I thought the scrap had some sort of sunset clause. In my mind, just because I bugged the turkeys in the morning, they had no reason to fight me after supper. The turkeys thought otherwise. Concentrating on any given outdoor activity was difficult. Hypervigilance is a must when one initiates force and intimidation. Since ignoring the turkeys was impossible, including them in my daily activities would eliminate the need for shoulder checking. My inner peace required me to establish and enforce a hierarchy of power and control in which, of course, I would be at the top. I was a bureaucrat that feared the winged people. Peace through submission. There would be order no matter how many subjects needed to be slaughtered. We gobbled at each other one afternoon while I sat on the front steps of the farmhouse. They put their war faces on, puffed out their feathers, and slowly advanced as a group, with the biggest turkey leading. As the distance narrowed to a crescendo of angst, I stood by the farmhouse door and feigned brazen bravery. Once the brinksmanship became too hot to handle, a simple sidestep inside the screen door would alleviate my nervous tension. Nothing encourages aggression like allowing the aggressor to complete protection. I'll read that again. Nothing encourages aggression like allowing the aggressor to enjoy complete protection from any repercussions. My Aunt Kathleen had been watching the turkeys and I go at it, and she saw a teachable moment. As the rush of fear became too much, I yanked on the screen door. Son of a... Some traitor had latched the screen door. Don't show fear, I thought. I had to think fast. Me, a flock of big pissed off turkeys, and 160 acres of land. Should I run for it? How fast can a turkey run? Failing to accurately assess the enemy before throwing myself into a dust-up with them resulted in a critical situation and total information darkness. As the furious birds edged toward me, my Aunt Kathleen opened the screen door and pulled me inside. Don't start fights that you can't finish, came the advice. She had locked the door for instructional purposes. Those turkeys can run a lot faster than you can. E tenebris lux, from darkness light. I learned that my adversaries were faster than me, along with being bigger, stronger, better protected, and better armed. I faced a power deficit. It was important information. The prudent decision was to avoid a direct conflict with a superior force. Where force cannot further an agenda, diplomacy, fraud, is required. Or is it the other way around? I had embarrassed myself and was forced to make a prudent non-aggression pact with turkeys. I left them alone for a while, and most of them seemed to let bygones be bygones. The agreement was pure fraud. In silence, I thought, I'll see you on Thanksgiving Day, you flightless bastards. Swearing in the farm was, for some reason, permissible. Maybe because treating kids as adults makes them mature faster and they can handle more responsibility sooner. Treating adults as children confines them in adolescence and makes them useless at any age. Entangling myself in a turkey war was too time-consuming and distracting anyway. Grandpa had slaughtered a cow, and I found great interest in the slow-moving but compelling event. Okay, so that's just an excerpt from Chapter 4, and Armistice was giant turkeys. The turkeys come back into my life much, much later, and we have a significant event happen there, too. So that's from my childhood. I'm going to take excerpts of, some of the book as we go. So, thanks.